I'm one of those proud entrepreneurs who always likes to talk about my failures first before I talk about my successes. I happened to make a mistake or a blunder reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. The big mistake was something that I commonly see many startups doing is that they think there is a market for what they are building. At least in the Indian culture, we're all taught how to earn money, but no one rarely teaches us how to manage money. Story matters, presentation strategy matters, and design matters. There is always this inherent tendency to complicate things because somehow in our minds we have got it that if I am complicated, if I speak jargon and if I speak hi-fi language as we would call it in India, right? So people will think great of me.
So 2006, you started your company. Tell me a little more about that. How did that start? What you were doing prior to 2006?
Right. Uh, coming to the story of Prezantim, um, it's a long story, but I'll try to keep it short. So I was in between two businesses. Had just exited from one of my ventures, which was the sixth venture, in fact, and there was this requirement from one of the newspapers for whom I was a speaker that there is someone in Coimbatore who's just come back from Singapore, and she wants someone to help her with content. So I said, okay, let's go ahead and do it. And while working, she one day was complaining about her team not being able to understand her story and trying to convert that into a presentation. So I said, let me do it for you. So I did that deck for her, which later on, after a few months, she came back to me and said that, based on that deck, she was able to convince a very big group of investors out of Bangalore to invest in her company. And from that, she got the opportunity to also meet someone else to whom she pitched her idea, and he funded her. That someone happened to be Mr. Ratan Tata. And so I said, wow, this is good. Making decks is an interesting business. There seems to be a business for this, right? So, and that's how this journey started. I'd been making presentations for friends, but it was always for fun. But then after this kind of incident, it stuck to me that there is this small space where you can work with founders and help them create narratives. And that's how Presentum took shape, formally in 2011. But this story happened somewhere in the end of 2010. So that's how the whole story started off.
Great. And then, with your professional career, you had a long entrepreneurial success and then failures also, three startups. So what happened there? What type of startup did you start and what went wrong? And what are the learnings?
Wonderful. So, yeah, I think I'm one of those proud entrepreneurs who always likes to talk about my failures first before I talk about my successes, because I think that is what have kind of built, my character as well as I see them failures building everyone's characters that I've seen successful. So somewhere in at the end of 2005 or middle of 2005, while working for Shell Petroleum, I happened to make a mistake or a blunder reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, and like the character Arjuna's son, who hears of the Chakravyuh midway, and then he thinks that he can go and now crack the Chakravyuh. I read the book halfway, and I thought I can now crack the entrepreneurial code. So decided to become an entrepreneur, plunged into entrepreneurship, quitting my high-paying job at Shell. And my first venture was primarily to race bike designing. We thought that there is this group of boys from Kerala who are all studying in Coimbatore and who have this large chunk of money that they seem to be spending. What if we could, get them race bikes and help them drive fancy bikes? So we started the business, ran it for 9 months, got trained on designing bikes. So, imported stuff, started designing race bikes. And by the ninth month, we were facing utter failure. We had not sold one bike by then. And if I look back, what was the big mistake? The big mistake was something that I commonly see many startups doing is that they think there is a market for what they are building. I thought that these boys who have a lot of money to spend from their rich parents will also spend a lot of money on a bike. But maybe that was a big error in judgment in judging the market size. So that kind of was the first lesson. So now once you kind of failed, you're now trying to prove yourself even more. And having worked with these large companies, including ExxonMobil and Shell, I realized that one of the trainings I got from them was operational integrity. How do you run a business without you physically being there? So we got into consulting, and at the age of 27, in a city like Coimbatore, which is driven primarily by family-owned businesses, you need to have a lot of gray matter, but also gray hair to consult. And people are not really taking us seriously, although we had enough experience behind our belt. Our age kind of went against us, which was also the second learning that sometimes it is not just the skill sets that matter, but there are other things that have to gel in when you want to be successful entrepreneurially. And the biggest learning from that also was investment in furniture is inversely proportional to success. When you're a young team trying to be consultants, you want to have a fancy office and fancy furniture. None of that actually turned into real business for us, and that was the learning. Uh, Third business is what probably you are also read of. At that point of time, we were India's first workplace financial education company. And the thought for that came from our own struggles. When I say us, it was me and my business partner. Both of us were colleagues in mobile, and that's how we became business partners. We realized that we had earned a lot of money, but we never knew how to manage that money while we were working as professionals. And which is what kind of Robert Kiyosaki has also written in his book Rich Dad Poor Dad. And also while we were running both these businesses, a major cause of our failure was wrong financial decisions. And we then kind of scrutinized that and realized that, at least in the Indian culture, we're all taught how to earn money, but no one rarely teaches us how to manage money. So we said, I think the key is personal financial education. And that's what we kind of started teaching people. We went to corporates, we worked with their employees, trained them on understanding their personal finance and how they can manage it better. We worked with individuals because something that we were not good at, we felt we could teach people because we know what the pitfalls were. That company was actually doing very well. We were on the verge of getting funded. We were speaking to a lot of investors, and I'm talking about 2008. And that's when the Lehman Brothers happened, and what happened to the whole world. And being a brick and mortar company, no one was keen on putting in our money into something that was very, very new to India. And we kind of had to put that company into hibernation. I wouldn't call it a failure, but you kind of put it hibernation. It's there deep inside the heart that somewhere we still want to revive that company because we still feel there is a need in the world. A lot of people are earning a lot of money, but they're not managing them. So those are the three failures. And probably the lesson from Finnerva was one: we were too early because at that point of time there was no smartphone, there was no scalable online kind of a model. We could have scaled up with online. And the other one also is when you're young and naive, you also the topmost question that someone asks you when you tell them that you're an entrepreneur, at least again in India, is the second question is always how many employees do you have, right? And it was becoming tough for us to answer two every time. So we started adding a few employees just because we wanted to show that we are a bigger team. And that also was probably a reason for our financial downfall is we ended up paying a lot of salary, which was always one way, it never came back, right? Because the people we invested also were not specifically for a purpose that we really had. So those are the three failures, Anshuman.
Right. Great. Now let's talk about the business storytelling side of things. Uh, I sit together in so many pitching events, and where the startup founders are coming, they're pitching for some kind of grant, government grant, or even pitch competitions, and then funding. And many times, technically, they are very sound, but they really lack in communicating the business aspect of their business to the investor. How important you have seen, and what are some of the tip and tricks you could provide to a budding founder that hey, your business could be this, the code, the technology, but the business is really this, what the investor will be interested in.
Right. So, very aptly put, Anshuman, is that they are very, very strong in whatever the idea they have, because that's something that they have got from inside. But because either they are too early stage or they have not had business exposure, there's always this missing chunk of the business aspect. But also the other aspect is that because they are so close to their product or their idea, sometimes when they communicate it, they're not realizing or they're not able to empathize with the person on the other side, right? You might have a great business in biotech, but I might be an entrepreneur who made my money selling milk, for example, probably. Right now, I don't understand technology. I don't understand what you're talking, and then there's always this gap. And through experience and through life, I have learned that the best way to communicate something that cannot be communicated any other way is probably storytelling, because storytelling have for over 200,000 or 300,000 years that human beings have been in existence has been the best way that humans can communicate their ideas. So the first uh, input would for sure be become better at storytelling. How do you connect to the other people? How do you empathize with them? How do you bring in a human context? Give them something that they can concretize in their mind. You might talk about multi-stack, but I am not able to create an image in my mind. I am not able to concretize it. So how do you help me concretize it? Probably use an example of a real human who's going through that problem or who's going through that trouble, and then kind of help create the narrative so that the investor or the audience in front of you is able to understand that. So that's part one. Coming to the business aspect, what I have found really helps is there are certain holes that need to be plugged in. Typically, it could be with the business model, or the second common one I see is with the financial models, or the go-to-market strategy. These are three areas because these are very specialized areas in a business, and typically they don't have those backgrounds. So it's always good to get a mentor who can probably guide them through that. If you have a co-founder who can, plug in that gap, wonderful. But otherwise, at least a mentor, and that's where networks like Tai really help them in bringing that part of the puzzle into the context so that they're able to, plug in that gap. So that's primarily how my company as well tries to position ourselves, is that we are the intersection of three circles. Circle number one is business knowledge and understanding from our own experiences of having been entrepreneurs and having been professionals. Number two, storytelling by understanding the power of the narrative. And number three, also understanding that all said and done, if my idea is not presented well, then I have kind of lost half the war. So design matters. So that's why we feel story matters, presentation strategy matters, and design matters. And that's the intersection that we try to operate on when we work with our clients.
So for early stage founders, common storytelling mistakes, what have been your experience? You have met with so many of them, and how? Maybe give us some pointers so that the early stage founders who can't afford to go and hire a professional services like yours, at least do some homework. I always say that hey, practice your pitch, record yourself, and just listen. That these days everybody is an iPhone or an Android phone. You have video recording facilities available to you. Record your pitch at that. Listen multiple times and see how you can massage it a little more. How many times you are repeating yourself? How many times, there is a 3-minute pitch and somebody will take 40 seconds just to come to the business problem. So you have lost 40 seconds in a 180-second pitch that you can do. What have been your experience in the common storytelling states that founders generally do?
Right. So I think there are two parts to your question, to say. One is, the fundamental concepts of pitching by itself, and two, from the storytelling perspective, right? So let me go with the second part first, which is, I wouldn't say mistakes, but I think these are just shortcomings because of the inherent way in which many of us have now started thinking and communicating. Number one, I see that there is always this inherent tendency to complicate things, because somehow in our minds we have got it that if I am complicated, if I speak jargon, and if I speak hi-fi language, as we would call it in India, right? So people will think great of me. But at the end of the day, people have to realize that if the message is simple, then you will be able to reach everyone. So try to make it simple. And in fact, I kind of borrow the structure from Chip Heath and Dan Heath to kind of teach this as well when I speak to people. Second is, if there are 100 people pitching to Anshuman Sinha, how does Anshuman Sinha take notice? If there is something unexpected in what you're communicating, Anshuman will sit up and say, if otherwise, if everyone is coming, I'm blah, 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 I'm doing blah, 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 I'm going to do blah, 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 right? Anshuman is going to get bored. So bring in something unexpected. The third one, like I said, is concreteness. Can you talk in a language where they're able to visualize what you are saying, right? So that's the third part that we can do. The fourth part is adding an emotional layer. This many of us think that it's not relevant, but at the end of the day, Anshuman and Pradeep are human beings. They are driven by emotions, and emotions can be varied. Fear is an emotion, greed is an emotion, right? So can you bring in that layer of emotion into your narrative is also something that can matter. And if you package all this thing in the form of a story, that's how it works. So I would say the four things is try to simplify it, bring in an unexpected element that they have not thought of or expected, try to package the whole thing in the form of a story arc or a narrative, bring in a layer of emotional content into it, and then of course bring in something concrete so that they're able to visualize what you're saying. Uh, Coming to the second part or the first part of your question, which was more about the presentation part, right? Absolutely no second thoughts. Some of the best pitches I have seen are people who have practiced them like 10 times, 12 times, because we think we have it in our mind and we can go there and just say it. But the moment you go there, internet may not work, the light might be flickering, he might get a phone call. There are so many things that will happen. So precious seconds from your 180 seconds or 300 seconds or whatever you have are being lost. But when you practice, you exactly know what you can do based on the remaining available time. When you not practice, that's when you struggle. And then what you're trying to do is trying to fit in 3 minutes worth of narrative into 2 minutes or 1 minute and 70 seconds or whatever you have. Right. So practice for sure. Number two, from a very tactical point of view, always try to prepare for at least 15 to 20% lesser time than what is given to you. So if I have been given a pitch for 3 minutes, I would probably prepare for 2 minutes and 40 seconds or not more. Because sometimes you are nervous. Even pros are nervous when they go on stage and see someone new. So that nervousness, you might slow down, you might use a lot of ums and ums and all that stuff, right? So prepare for at least 10 to 15% lesser time than what you have been allotted is the second one that I would talk about. The third one that I've seen, especially with my experience with Thai and having worked with a lot of entrepreneurs, mainly the collegiate entrepreneurs, is some of the best ones always have a script. It is very, very important because that script kind of gives you the structure and it fits in with the first part of practicing. So when you have a script, then it is easy for you to not forget what you wanted to speak. Yet, even if you forget, you know what's the flow. So those are the three things that I would do. From a design perspective, Anshuman, there are certain simple things that people can do. One, don't crowd your slides with content. This has two advantages. One, the focus is always on you as the narrator and as the storyteller and not on the slides. Two, a very tactical thing is if you put A, B, C, D, E on the slides and in your nervousness you forget D, the investor or the audience is always going to be wondering why is it that this guy did not speak about D and he's actually lost you and your narrative by the time you go to the next slide. So the lesser the content, the more power you have. So they will never know what you forgot. You know what you forgot, but they will never know when you have lesser on the track. And I always like to give this example of, let's say Anshuman, I come to your town, okay, and I have 10 minutes to be with you. I am saying, Anshuman, show me San Diego. So will you take me on your car and drive me for 10 minutes in the streets of San Diego? Or will you take me on a helicopter and show me the whole city in 10 minutes? What would you do?
I'll take you in the helicopter and show you the whole city.
Right? Because in 10 minutes, that's all you can do, right? Show the big picture, which is literally what you want to do in a 10-minute, 3-minute pitch, is that show them the big picture. And then if they love what they're seeing, they will obviously call you for the second date. I call it the second date, right? Because it's like getting a second date from an investor is when they want to talk to you for half an hour and not for just 3 minutes. So I think those are some of the things that young entrepreneurs can do to make sure that their pitches are taken seriously and they're effective as well.
a pitch competition is happening, and founder will come. Suddenly, their slide will go, and you're right. Many things can go wrong. The mic is not working, the clicker is not working, and the first slide comes in. Oh, this is not my latest slide. I think, okay, you already know this is not your latest slide, but now you have to deal with it rather than telling the whole audience and the judges that, hey, now I'm not with my latest slide, because you lose half of it. So don't do that. And yeah, it rightly said that but I really loved it when you said that prepare for 40% less time, that you should be completing your pitch in that, and then a lot of things can happen, and then you can carry. Certainly, I follow with Guy Kawasaki a lot, and his theories about with 10 pitch slide deck, and all those things are out there on the internet, so readily available. What is your view on that? When we come to a pitching deck, and these are early stage founders, these are not Series A founders who have just raised their friends and family round, and now they are going for their first angel round. How should they prepare? What should be a typical slide deck from the business and storytelling perspective?
Right. So, the first thing I really love to tell people is that forget this word pitch deck. That's where the whole problem starts. Because now this is not a word that you regularly use in your day-to-day life. And then suddenly everyone says, where is your pitch deck, right? For the first time, when my investors told me pitch deck, I was clueless what it even really means. Right? I knew there was a word called pitch, something called as a deck, but what was it? So, come out of that mindset and just assume you're going to have a conversation with another person to whom you're going to tell about your business, and you want to convince that other person to accept that there's a wonderful opportunity in your business. Number two, for them to understand that you are a credible person to do that business, and you're also a credible person to be their partner, right? So once you have this mindset, then automatically, what the slides are going to be, what the pitch deck has to be, will always be different for different people. I always keep saying this: if God had templates, all of us will look the same. So throw those templates out. Yes, they have structures. Yes, they are structures to help you think through it. But don't be stuck up on problem solution kind of a template because someone told you that first slide has to be problem, second slide has to be solution. But maybe you are someone who's taken something that's already there and you're making it better. So it will not really fit into that problem solution structure. Rather fit it into looking at answering one question that the investor or the audience has: what is in it for me? What should be in it for him? That it's a wonderful opportunity, and I don't want to lose the opportunity to be a partner to this guy, right? Isn't that what the common denominator for all pitches is going to be? So now when you reverse work from that, you know exactly what are the things that you want to talk about. Okay? That said, ideally, depending upon the time that you have, they would need to really understand one and empathize. In case it's a problem that you're solving, they need to empathize because they may not necessarily be from the same domain. So give them the context, especially from a human context, and help them empathize and come to a moment where they either react, oh my God, is it true that so many people don't have access to this, right? So now they are empathetic, and then give them the aha moment saying that, but don't worry, here's my startup and here's what I've done to solve this problem. There's the aha, oh wow moment, right? And what's going to be the next question? Tell me, how are you going to make money? So show them a broad way by showing the business model. Once you show that, then now you have to prove your credibility. Especially because you're at an early stage, it's very, very important that you prove your credibility to be the right team to solve this problem, right? If, let's say, I'm an electronics engineer and I'm trying to solve something in microbiology, there is really no connect unless until there's a personal connect for me into that. So let's say, I had a cousin who had this disease, and hence I was motivated that in spite of my electronics degree, I should probably do this. Then I have a strong reason to believe that you will, run this company. But if you say, I was sitting idle, I want to do some business, and hey, this is what I came up with, then the credibility is lost. So I think the fourth chunk would be building your credibility by showcasing you and your team and why you are the right guys to do it. In fact, I always give this metaphor saying that, the horse can any day go lame, but if the jockey is good and he will help me win other races. And that's what investors are wanting by betting on the right teams. They're not betting on the ideas because ideas are dime a dozen. But what really takes for a company to become a billion-dollar company is execution, and execution only comes from the right team. So I would say these are the four broad buckets that should be there in a deck. That said, there are hundreds and thousands of templates out there which tell you slide one, slide two, slide three, slide four, slide five, depending upon the time that you have, you should go. And just coming back to the earlier question that you had as well, Anshuman, where it's a 3 minute pitch. In fact, the more I have been working with people, the more I feel dump your pitch deck. Really, you can't put your slide up there and in 3 minutes narrate the whole thing and get them to focus visually. 50% of the brain's energy is always used for visual processing. And then they also have to have auditory processing, which is process you. And then they also have to overcome their chota dimag, as we call in Hindi, or the subconscious monkey inside the brain that is trying to tell them that, hey, this guy is not dependable. Hey, this guy is doing bullshit. Or, hey, this guy is wonderful. Or, hey, you didn't, pay your current bills or whatever, right? So you're working on so many things. I would rather say for a 3 minute pitch, dump the pitch deck, just go there, have a solid narrative. Unless until you have something that's cannot be explained without a visual, I would say dump the pitch deck for a 3 minute deck for sure. For a 10 minute, yes. And a deck always also gives you structure of your flow. So you don't forget, what flow you wanted to go ahead with. Yeah.
Some proven storytelling techniques that have worked for you, that you guide your customers with. What are those? High level 30,000 feet
Right.
proven,
So I think
storytelling techniques.
Right. So, like I said, the most proven one is always putting a human being in the center of the narrative, right? The moment you put a human being at the center, automatically empathy comes in, automatically meaning comes in, automatically emotion comes in. So, it's not very difficult for you to now tweak the narrative. Let's say, for example, I want to talk about the fact that many Indian women do not go to the gynecologist for a pap smear test, right? For you and me as men, Anshuman, we may wonder, why don't they go to a gynecologist? It's so critical that they do a pap smear test so they know whether they have cervical cancer or no. And this is where you kind of take them through the journey saying that, hey, my wife avoided going to the gynecologist because she felt very, very humiliated having to remove all her clothes there. And then someone, literally touching her body and taking a smear. So this embarrassment is what stops women from going to a gynecologist, although they know that they need to do it multiple times after they are 40, which now brings in the empathy element. You've also gone through the problem now along with the women, because the moment I say someone, Anshuman is also visualizing someone else in his mind. He's visualizing a gynecologist. He's going through the problem. So immediately the next thing will be, hasn't anyone done this? And then the immediate question is, we probably, and hence we came up with this pap smear test that can be done at home without having to go to the gynecologist. You kind of port them to the answer, right? So I think that's one of the best techniques to bring in a human being into the narrative. The second one is using the power of examples. If you and I go back to our childhood and we remember who was our favorite teacher, it would probably be the teacher who always gave us examples. Examples are a different shape of stories, because there you're able to help people go along with the journey. But now what's happening is when you're giving them that example, they put themselves in that story and they are now visualizing that from their perspective. Let's say you are talking about your struggles of coming out of debt. Pradeep is also now imagining his own debt problem rather than just focusing on Anshuman's debt problem. So examples are another wonderful way of using the power of stories to connect. I think these are two great ways. The third one would be anecdotes or incidents that happen somewhere, which kind of help people say, okay, and especially a lot of wonderful books have given very solid insights into doing this. For example, let's say if I say, Anshuman, drinking alcohol is not good for you. You may listen to me, you may not listen to me. But if I tell you, Anshuman, last October, I think the date was 21st of September, 21st of October, a friend of mine called Rakesh consumed a lot of alcohol, and while going on the road, instead of driving on the right side as they do in America, he drove on the left side and met with an accident. Now, just one small thing happened here, Anshuman, for you to start believing in that. You know what? It was that date that I told. When you did things, then there's a lot of concreteness built in because now it's becoming believable. There is a reason for me to believe it. So I think these are three things that I would say. There are many other methods. Maybe we need to do multiple sessions to understand that.
Yeah. So when you are helping your customer, do you provide end-to-end services like various mediums of communication, like website, the deck or the presentation deck, and then how to present it? Is it a full service end-to-end kind of thing?
Yeah. So in terms of little services, Anshuman, we have tried to narrow down on a very niche space, which is focusing on the pitch deck and delivery of the pitch deck. Right. So we work with the founder, understand their vision, understand their story from their perspective, then put ourselves in our own experiences. Let's say I come from the oil industry, right? So I would look at that problem as an oil industry person. How would I have solved this, or how would I have had understood this if I were still working in Shell or ExxonMobil, right? So we are able to bring in the third person perspective, right? Again, I give the example. I'm running, and it is very, very difficult for me when I'm running to understand whether I'm on the right direction or wrong direction. But let's say I'm running and I have a way that I can also come out of that and be a third person myself and look at me running. Now, would it be more easier for me to see which direction I'm going? Yes, because now you're looking at it from the perspective of a third person, right? So the benefit we give them is that we look at it from the perspective of a third person and help them understand that. And then, of course, many a times, because these are new concepts that they're trying to inculcate in themselves, because communication is not something that comes overnight. It's been built over a large period of time. So we also assist them in pitching it, coaching them on pitching it. In very, very rare cases, have we extrapolated that learning of their story to help them with other collateral. We mostly don't do it, primarily because we don't have the bandwidth, and also because we want to be very specialized in that one area where we build the story, we build the narrative, we help them plug in the holes in the strategy, and then we help them pitch it. The only extrapolation that happens intuitively is when we help them build their sales deck. Because now that you have raised money to scale up, you need to scale up using sales. And so we help them build the sales deck or their sales pitches. And in some cases, we have ended up doing their website story as well, not building the site, but story as well.
These are very nice. Uh, the visual plays a significant role in the storytelling. And again, coming from my own experiences, attending so many pitch events, many people just clutter their slide decks, and then start reading. So there is a usual up, and then they start reading, through the confidence monitor or even looking on the site on the screen. How good or bad is that? And how they should stop.
Right. So it's a tough question to answer in a very short span of time, but I'll kind of try to bring in my perspective. So in design, there is this very wonderful concept called signal to noise ratio. The more the noise, the lesser is your signal going to reach you. Let me give you a concrete example so you are able to kind of visualize what I'm saying, Anshuman. Let's say you and I are talking right now, and my daughter and my nephews are making a lot of noise here, and I am trying to communicate a message or a signal to you. Would you receive it as clearly as I am sending it? No, because there's noise, right? Uh, Similarly, in a slide, the slide is like a communication to the audience. You're trying to give a signal to the audience. So everything other than the core point that you want to explain is noise. Even putting your logo on the right hand lower corner of the slide is noise, because it is adding an extra layer for my brain to process visually. So keep it as clean as possible with just the focus on that one single point. And like I said, when there is nothing on the slide, there is no other way for the audience rather than to focus on what you are talking, because you are the hero, you are the storyteller, right? Their focus has to be there on that. So number one, reduce noise on your slides. Second, if you put text, let's say I put 5 texts, okay, and I've seen this that when I'm reading about text number 1, my audience, because they want to show that they're better than me or they want to stay one step ahead of me, they're already reading step number 4 and step number 5. So which means they have lost my attention. So if you do have 5 points to speak, spread them into 5 slides. One idea per slide, not 5 ideas in one slide, right? So when you layer it that way, then they are also able to focus only on that. I personally have a benchmark that if my slide cannot communicate what I'm talking in less than 5 words, I do not know about that stuff well enough to be a presenter. So my personal slides, they will never have more than 5 words and probably one image. And the words are just also, just a reiteration. Many a times I don't even put the words. Because what happens now is indirectly you're communicating to the audience that you have done your homework. You have done your preparation. You know your stuff well. Subconsciously, they have started accepting you as the person who's got the credibility to teach them. But if you have everything on the slide, they're going to say, hey, this guy copy pasted from somewhere else. Their subconscious brain is going to tell them, hey, don't listen to him. You might find the same thing on Google. Go home and Google it and get it down. So, yeah, lesser text. Now, what's this also forcing you, Anshuman, is to find powerful images to communicate what you're talking about. Because now you're forced, right? I have only 30 seconds. In one slide, I want to communicate to the audience that I have a lot of competition. At the same time, I have found my own ocean market, right? I'll give you the example of a slide that all of us commonly see, which is the competition slide. And I'll tell you how the power of visuals work there. So typically what you see, Anshuman, right? One column talking about the features of your company. Second column, your company. And how's the mark there? Tick, 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 tick for everything. And then next column, half cross, half tick, half cross, half tick for everyone else, right? Isn't that so biased a comparison? Because obviously you're not going to talk about your shortcomings and you're not going to portray other companies as if they have everything that you have and much more than that, right? Which kind of is also visually very incorrect, because in 30 seconds for me to listen to that and process that whole table is near to impossible as a human being. So what we suggest people is go with an XY axis, kind of a layout where you're showing the entire ecosystem. On that X axis and Y axis are two parameters which are really the big differentiation between you and your competitors. Fine, what is that? It could be different for different people, right? Number of employees versus amount of days that we work to make $1 million, maybe, right? Everyone else does it in 10 days. We are able to do it in 2 days. That's your blue ocean. So now visually, when I see that whole ecosystem on the graph, one, as a audience, I get the context that yes, there is a lot of competition, which means there are a lot of players in this domain, which means it's probably a good domain. That's why so many people are there. At the same time, this guy has found a very small niche, which is a blue ocean, where there are no more red sharks, and this is what he's excelling at, right? And that's what kind of is the power of visual. So I would say we need to use that. And fifth one, don't use visuals that don't communicate what you're trying to talk about. Like Indian presenters putting Caucasian faces on their decks while talking about poverty in in a village, right? It's kind of counterintuitive to what you're talking about. So those are some visual aspects that they can look at. And Robin Williams has this wonderful book called Design for Non-Designers. Yeah, I would suggest everyone to probably read that. Whether you're making a pitch deck or no, doesn't matter. We should read. Yeah, Robin Williams. And then, of course, there's this gentleman, Guy Kawasaki. No, not Guy Kawasaki. What's his? Presentation Zen, Gare Reynolds. Gare Reynolds has written this wonderful book called Presentation Zen and Presentation Zen Design. Even if you don't read Robin Williams, if you read these two books, from a presentation perspective, you will learn everything that is there to learn.
Okay, now you and I both live in the area of, at the age of AI, Canva. We started when PowerPoint is in its early stages, and now look at where Canva is. What is your recommendation? How early stage founders, and if there are some other AI tools that you may want to tell them about, that well, again, after friends and family round, at the angel round, before Series A round. somebody, a good founder trying to, create their storytelling deck to go and, meet with investors, which AI tools and how to go about it?
Okay. So I need to make a conscious acknowledgement here. I personally don't use any AI tools, so I'm handicapped. It is not that I have any ego or whatever. It's just that I've been lazy enough not to have explored them. But my team does use some of them, at least for the visual part of it. And what Daniel Pink wrote in 2003-4 in the context of America is now becoming true for the whole world is that the future belongs to a different kind of person, or a person who's a right brain thinker, a storyteller, a visual thinker, a creative person. So tools, Anshuman, are just tools. At the end of the day, what do you do with those tools is what is going to really matter, right? So all said and done, it has to reflect your personal ethos, your personal values, which will come in the form of the narrative. That said, I do acknowledge the fact that AI can speed up a lot of other things that you would routinely do. For example, I remember at least 15 years, 16 years ago, when I had to make a slide for showing my team, I didn't know how to cut my mugshot into an outline so that the background could be removed. I literally used to take my bike and go to my graphic design agency, sit with that guy and make him cut it, which was a very simple tool in a software called CorelDRAW, called Pen Tool. So he would kind of put dots and then make a power clip and put it in. Now, with AI, I can just do that in half a second, right? So, which means, think of the 1 hour I lost just in cutting one image to just 30, less than half a second, 30 milliseconds for me to get that image done. So, there are visual tools, AI tools that can do that. There are AI tools that can also create narratives, especially because AI is able to source connections from many, many, many places that a normal human being cannot. Storytelling is nothing but connecting the dots with multiple experiences that you have had in the past or you have seen something, right? The AI machine can obviously do that faster. But there are certain places where it may not be able to do that as well. At least now, for now, I may be proven wrong in a few months with the way AI is taking over the world, which is basically the empathy part, the emotions part, which only you can bring onto the table, right? AI did not face that problem. Like, yesterday I met a founder, close friend of mine, whose wife, because she had PCOD, had multiple other issues with her skin. And this guy comes from a lubricants background. So he saw the creams that she was using. And a lot of the composition of the creams were the same products she used to sell in its lubricant shop. So he's now wondering, why is my wife putting chemicals that is going into the oil on her skin? And that's when they came to the realization that, these products are not for human consumption. So how do I solve it? And that's when they went and researched, and both of them created a company called Juicy Chemistry. Probably potential interviews for you as well. One of the greatest selling D2C brands for cosmetics and skincare. Right now, this experience can the AI ever generate? It cannot, right? Why did Pritesh solve this problem? Because Pritesh connected his experience of oil and gas and lubricants with his wife's problem. Literally, scratching the itch kind of narrative. So that's where I think human beings will be needed, but use AI to speeden up things that normally would take a lot of man hours to do. That said, like I said, I'm handicapped in my knowledge of AI tools, so I may not be able to help you along that.
That is perfectly all right, Pradeep. Thank you so
Probably
much for your
send a
time and
message to
talking.
Sam Altman. Send a message to Sam
Send a
Altman or
message to
those
Sam
VC people.
Altman or those
They might answer it better.
They
Yeah.
might answer it. The knowledge that I can share with my viewers. And I hope to continue this discussion with you in various forms and faiths and helping educate the youngsters and, the new founders. Again, my group is After Friends and Family, Before Angel, how we can help them. So thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure, Anshuman. And as we wind up, I want to leave at least the audience, especially because you said they are young people, with just one final thought. And this is something that I always talk about when I do my workshops. So I talk about this poem written by Mahakavi Bharadiyar, who was one of the greatest revolutionary poets of Tamil Nadu, at least. And he says, Agni Kunjandra Kandena Ango Katilor Pondirai Vaitain, when the Taninda the Kadatalal Viratil Kunjendrum Upendrumundo. Translated in English, it says, I took a small spark of fire. मैंने एक छोटा सा चिंगारी लिया. I left the spark deep inside the forest. गहरे जंगल में छोड़ दिया. And the next day when I came back, entire forest was burned down to ashes. Right? पूरा जंगल भस्म हो चुका था. And that is the power of the Indian youth, is when they decide to be the spark, nothing can stop them from becoming the fire. And I think metaphorically, that spark is nothing but the idea that each of us have for our ventures. एक बार तुमने ठान लिया कि this idea has to change the world and you start giving it fuel and oxygen, there is no way your idea can be stopped from changing or transforming the entire world. So if there is one thing that I want you to remember, my young friends, it is this, that in you, you already have the spark. Shows like what Anshuman is doing is nothing but the fuel and oxygen. So use them to fuel and oxygen your journey. May God bless all of you with great health, with great prosperity, with great growth.